For the first 4 years of our marriage, my wife, whom I'll call Jen, and I seemed to be doing well. We met back in college. She was breathtakingly beautiful and appeared genuinely interested in my goals rather than just looking for a party life. I was pursuing a business degree while she studied education. We hit it off immediately. After graduation, I started my own consulting business. The initial years were brutal. 80-plus-hour workweeks, constant stress, and financial struggles. But Jen was incredibly supportive back then. She'd bring me energy drinks at 2 a.m., give me pep talks when I doubted myself, and even offered to put her teaching career on hold to help me build something great. At the time, I thought it was the most selfless act I had ever witnessed. Looking back, I should have recognized the red flags waving in my face. Eventually, my business took off, and we moved into a beautiful home in a great neighborhood. That's when Jen became obsessed with her church. She started leading women's groups, organizing charity events, constantly posting Bible verses on Instagram, and preaching about family values and marital sanctity. But by our 4th year together, things began to feel off. First, the changes were small. She stopped asking about my day. Conversations that used to flow naturally now felt forced, like she was just checking off a list rather than genuinely listening. I'd ask simple things like, "How was Bible study? Who showed up?" And she'd respond with vague, clipped answers before quickly changing the subject. Then came her sudden, unexplained interest in our finances. Previously, she was content with having access to credit cards, never asking about business matters. Now she wanted details. How much did we make last quarter? What's the business valued at? Do we have assets she didn't know about? At first, I thought she was just taking an interest in our life together. Then I caught her taking pictures of financial documents I had left out. One night, I woke up and found her going through my office files. She tried to play it off, claiming she was just organizing things. But I saw her scrolling through documents on her phone. Then her schedule changed. Random late nights. Weekend getaways that didn't add up. She'd leave in one outfit and return in another, brushing it off with, "Oh, I spilled something." The weirdest part. She suddenly started dressing sexier but never wore those clothes around me. One night, she came home late, hair slightly messy, makeup smudged, carrying a faint scent of a strange cologne. I casually asked, "Long night?" She barely looked at me. "Yeah, Bible study ran late." Then we grabbed dinner. Except I knew Bible study ended at 8 p.m. She was coming home past midnight. When I pointed out that she smelled like cologne, her entire demeanor shifted. Not guilty, defensive. "Maybe if you weren't always at work, you'd actually know what's going on in my life," she snapped. That wasn't an answer. It was a deflection. And that's when I knew. I didn't confront her immediately. Instead, I got smart. I started monitoring credit card statements and checking her location history. When she left her iPad unlocked, I took a look. Pro tip: women never sign out of their accounts. Sure enough, every Tuesday and Thursday, she was spending exactly 2 to 3 hours at the same apartment complex. I decided to see it for myself. On a Thursday afternoon, I left work early and parked across from the building. At 2 p.m., Jen pulled up, got out, and walked inside. 10 minutes later, a tall, muscular guy with tribal tattoos arrived. I snapped pictures as they entered the building together, all touchy-feely. I sat there, seething, watching my wife, the woman I built my world around, walk into another man's apartment with the same flirtatious energy she once had for me. My instincts screamed at me to storm in. But I held back. Rage is loud. Revenge is quiet. His name was Eric. He worked at her church, possibly as a youth pastor. The irony was too rich. I collected more proof. Screenshots of texts, hotel receipts from her purse, recorded phone calls where she told Eric she'd leave me soon. The worst part: seeing how long she'd been planning this. I'm waiting for the right moment. He's too busy with work to notice anything. Once I file, I'll push for alimony. He won't see it coming. She wasn't just cheating, she was strategizing. She wanted to leave me and make me fund her new life. That's when I knew she wouldn't be walking away with anything. I met with my accountant and restructured my business finances to show lower liquidity. I prepaid office leases, paid down debts, and adjusted my salary to keep more money in the firm rather than as personal income. Then, out of nowhere, Jen made the first move. I came home one evening and she was sitting on the couch smug. "Mike, we need to talk." I already knew what was coming, but I played dumb. "I'm pregnant." We hadn't been intimate in months. Before I could respond, she twisted the knife. "But it's not yours. I've been seeing someone else. I want a divorce." 5 years of marriage, thrown away like an expired coupon. I wanted to throw the folder of evidence in her face. But then it hit me, she had no idea I already knew. So I just smiled. Her face flickered with confusion. She was expecting anger, begging. Instead, I leaned back and asked, "Did you really think I wouldn't know about Eric?" Her face drained of color. "Tuesdays and Thursdays, right? 2 to 3 hours, same apartment, same parking spot. You didn't even try to mix it up." She tried to deny it, but I kept going. "Bible study runs late, huh? Must be one hell of a lesson plan if it requires lingerie and a hotel room." To panic. I watched her world crumble in real time. Then I dropped the final blow. I had already informed her church. Her reputation ruined. Eric fired. My alimony payments reduced to nearly nothing. And that was how my cheating wife lost everything she tried to steal from me. Revenge isn't loud. It's quiet. And it's oh so satisfying. My lawyer pushed back, meticulously laying out all the evidence again, emphasizing that my wife wasn't merely leaving a marriage. She was strategically securing a financial safety net while living with another man. The judge, however, remained unfazed. He simply sighed, waiting for us to finish. When it was time for the ruling, he cleared his throat and brought down the gavel. While the court acknowledges Mr. Walker's concerns regarding his wife's infidelity, the law in this state is clear. Spousal misconduct is not a factor in determining alimony. Jen smirked at me from across the room. The judge continued, "Given Mrs. Walker's financial dependence during the marriage and her current unemployment status, the court finds that she is entitled to spousal support. Mr. Walker will pay $4,500 monthly for a period of 4 years, or until Mrs. Walker remarries. $4,500 a month. For 4 years. To the woman who had betrayed me, who had carried another man's child while still married to me. It felt like I was being forced to swallow poison, but at least the judge had reduced it from the $6,000 she originally demanded. Not ideal, but still a small victory. What Jen and her lawyer didn't realize, though, was that my financial planning had been far more strategic than they assumed. They had no idea about the assets I had carefully tucked away, or that my business, currently appearing to struggle, would miraculously recover once this ordeal was behind me. Jen strutted out of the courtroom, victorious. As she passed, she leaned in and whispered, "Told you. Should have just agreed to my terms from the beginning." Then, right in front of me, she pulled out her phone and called Eric. "Baby, it's done. We won." She giggled like a teenager. "He has to pay. I told you the judge wouldn't care about the other stuff." I said nothing. I just watched her walk away, believing she had executed the ultimate deception. But she had no idea that the game was only just beginning. I paid the first alimony check on time. No complaints. No resistance. I even sent a polite email. "Payment sent. Please confirm receipt." Jen was taken aback. She undoubtedly expected me to fight, to argue, to give her more ammunition to use against me. Instead, I played the perfect ex-husband. Polite, punctual, and detached. She had no clue what was coming. Jen was not just a member of Harvest Community Church. She was its poster child. She led the women's ministry, organized marriage retreats, and regularly spoke on stage about God's plan for holy matrimony. Her father was a deacon, her mother ran Sunday school. Her entire family had built their lives on the foundation of their church's reputation. And I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that they would throw her under the bus the moment they learned who she really was. I had gathered everything: DNA test results, time-stamped photos of her and Eric, explicit text messages, hotel receipts, even a recording where she mocked her religious peers for being uptight prudes. That one was especially juicy. I compiled it all into a neat, professional folder and attached a courteous cover letter. To the elders of Harvest Community Church. I regret bringing this to your attention, but as a fellow Christian, I believe it is my responsibility. My ex-wife, Jennifer Walker, who oversees multiple ministries in your church, has been engaging in behavior that defies your church's principles. I have provided documentation of her infidelity, which began during our marriage and resulted in a pregnancy that is not mine, as proven by DNA testing. Jennifer is now living with this man while simultaneously receiving significant alimony from me. I share this not out of spite, but out of concern for the integrity of your ministry. Respectfully, Michael Walker. I dropped off the package early Sunday morning when no one was around. Then I simply went home and waited. By the following Sunday, my phone exploded with texts from mutual church acquaintances. Dude, WTF did you do? Pastor just called an emergency elder meeting before service. Jen is losing it. I turned off my phone and went back to sleep. Not gonna lie, it felt amazing. Later that afternoon, a voicemail came in from Jen. She was screaming so loudly that I had to hold the phone away from my ear. You absolute piece of. How could you do this to me? They kicked me out of the women's ministry. My dad won't even look at me. You've ruined everything. Delete. No response. I didn't need that negativity in my life. Throughout the week, more frantic messages trickled in. Her church friends ignored her. Her parents were praying about the situation, which in church terms meant they were deeply disappointed in her. The Christian school where she volunteered asked her to step down. Even Eric was having second thoughts. Apparently, he hadn't signed up for this level of drama. He thought he was getting a devoted partner and a cushy alimony boost. Instead, he was now a social pariah with a pregnant mistress and a tarnished reputation. By Friday, he kicked her out of his apartment. 1 week later, Jen faced a formal disciplinary hearing with the church elders. The next day, word spread like wildfire. Jen had been officially labeled an adulteress and stripped of all church responsibilities. Her father stepped down as deacon. Her sister postponed her wedding. Her family was effectively exiled from the very community they had once been pillars of. And Eric? He requested a transfer to another church in a different state, leaving Jen pregnant and alone. I didn't have to lift a finger. The very people she once relied on had done all the heavy lifting for me. Small religious communities are interconnected. Once Harvest Community Church cast her out, a chain reaction followed. The private Christian school where she worked part-time experienced budget constraints and cancelled her position. Her volunteer gigs mysteriously dried up. The crisis pregnancy center where she counseled young women decided her current circumstances made her an unfit role model. Every piece of her identity was systematically stripped away. 3 weeks later, a text from a former neighbor popped up. Jen's living in her car. Walmart parking lot. I drove by that night. Sure enough, her old Honda was parked in a shadowy corner. I saw her silhouette, lit by her phone screen. I said nothing, just watched. The next day she called. Mike, I lost my job. The baby's due in 5 months. My parents won't talk to me. Hey, I've been sleeping in my car. Sounds like poor financial planning. She took a sharp breath. Is this what you wanted? To see me completely destroyed? I considered it. You know what? Yeah, pretty much. She swallowed a sob. I made a mistake. I never meant to hurt you. I don't care. Then, after a long pause, I decided to play my final card. Actually, I might have a solution. Her voice perked up. What kind of solution? A lump sum buyout. 1 payment. No more monthly alimony. How much? $90,000. Tax-free. You sign away all future claims, and the money is yours today. Silence. Then, I'll take it. The next morning she signed the papers. When my lawyer slid the check across the table, her hands trembled as she took it. "So that's it. We're done." He nodded. "Completely done." She walked out of my life forever. And I walked away free, unburdened, and ready to build an empire without her shadow lingering over me.